Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I'm always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for developments. And I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we're a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come and sit here, Gwendolen?
Thanks, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens! Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers.
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will be all, Lane. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers in the market this morning. Not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon, for I had some crumpets for Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed its colour. From what cause, I of course cannot say. Thank you. I've quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Fargo. She's such a nice woman, and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
Yes, I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, that I will have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I hope not, Algernon. I would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to that.
It is a great bore, and I need hardly say a terrible disappointment for me. But the fact is that I've just had a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It's very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Bunbury's a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, that I think it's high time that this Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying with the question's absurd. Nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness of any kind is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is a primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice, as far as any improvement in his ailment goes. I should be much obliged if you'd ask Mr. Bunbury, from me, to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and I want something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season, when everyone has practically said what they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he's still conscious. And I think I can promise you he'll be all right by Saturday. Of course, the music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen. And if one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll run over the programme I've drawn out, if you will kindly come to the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. It's very thoughtful of you. I'm sure the programme will be delightful after a few expurgations. Gwendolen, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's
And I would
temporary...
certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of suddenly coming back into the room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, Ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any girl I've ever met since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite well aware of the fact. And I often wish that in public, at any rate, you had been a bit more demonstrative. For me, you've always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Ernest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately.
Oh, darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Ernest.
But you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is, but supposing it was something else, do you mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Well, personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't care much for the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It's a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolen, I must say that I think there are lots of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack? No, there's very little music in the name Jack, if any at all, indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for the name John, and I pity any woman who's married to a man called John. She will probably never know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolen, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't even proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly, beforehand, that I'm fully determined to accept you.
Oh, Gwendolen.
Yes, Mr. Worthing? What have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolen. Will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long have you been about it? I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
My darling, I have never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. My, what wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They're quite blue. Oh, I hope you will always look at me like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from the semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I'm engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you're not engaged to anyone. when you do become engaged, I, or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant, as the case may be. It is hardly a matter that she could be allowed to arrange for herself. And now, Mr. Worthing, I have a few questions to put to you. While I'm making these inquiries, you, Gwendolen, will wait for me below, in the carriage.
Mama!
In the carriage, Gwendolen. Gwendolen, the carriage!
Yes, Mama.
You may take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you're not on my list of eligible young men. Although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I am quite ready to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires.